Is a shiur about understanding Israel. It's probably an impossible mission. I mean, to try to understand Israel is really something that is impossible, but we'll try to do our best in order to understand the big disputes. And today we are going to speak about the Kotel, all the Kotel issues Kobe suggested, and try to understand what is the whole argument. The problem is that the opinions are so far away one from another. Nobody listen even to each other. No, it's really a disaster. And through this issue, we'll try to understand a few things about Israel and understanding what's happening here. And the question is where to start from. Okay, so let's start from not from the beginning, but from the impossible mission that Israel is trying to do. Israel is defined, even though there is no constitution yet, but there are basic laws. And the laws actually define Israel as a Jewish democratic state. Now, saying that a Jewish democratic state, it's a contradiction, it's an inherent contradiction. Because the source of power of democracy is two things. One is the majority, the public. And so therefore, once you say this is the source of the power, it includes the Arabs, that are 20%, it includes all kinds of citizens that actually don't think that Judaism should be, some of them don't think that Judaism should be a essential issue of the state. And the second thing is that when you say a democracy, a special Western world type democracy, you say that there is a list of rights where the government is not permitted to violate. There are rights that individuals have. Then even if the majority, for instance, wants to shut my mouth and wants to insist that I will not have freedom of expression and freedom of getting, building parties or whatever, the majority is not permitted to do that. It's unacceptable, and actually the Supreme Court should protect me and should force the government to do things against the majority. Yeah. So when these are two sources of power of democracy. For instance, let's say a word about Amona. Many people claim that because the government was part of establishing Amona as a settlement, therefore the Supreme Court is not permitted to make any decisions against the government. But this is a stupid announcement. It's a real stupid announcement, because it's not that the Supreme Court is permitted to do that. That's a job. If with a very, very, very capital I, yeah. But if the government steals private properties in order to establish a new settlement, then the mission of the Supreme Court is to protect the individual properties and to stop the government. So saying that because the government was part of the decision and part of the establishment, that means that the Supreme Court is actually, cannot do anything against the government. It's really misunderstanding of democracy, of the role of the Supreme Court in protecting the rights, the list of rights. Okay, so this is the source of power for democracy. Source of power of Jewish, that's a good question. Who is the source of power? But in Israel, the majority, again, not everyone, but the majority in Israel feel that the source of power, or think that the source of power of Jewish life is orthodoxy. Is orthodoxy, okay? So the orthodoxy is actually the official commentator of what Judaism means, at least in Israel. In Israel, the reform, you must understand something that is completely different than Israel and the diaspora. in the diaspora, you must be connected to a kind of a congregation in order to remain Jewish. I mean, it can be reform, it can be conservative, it can be new construction, it can be whatever, and kamuvan orthodoxy, but you must be, the main danger is unaffiliated. I mean, unaffiliated usually are assimilating and disappearing. In Israel, there's no need for that. There's no need, because you are Jewish by definition. Once you are part of the Jewish state, you speak Hebrew, your calendar is the Hebrew calendar. Yeah, the schools, the education system respond to the holidays, to the festivals, to whatever. The banks, think about it, it's unbelievable, but in Jerusalem on 15 of Adar, the banks are closed only in Jerusalem, because 3,000 years ago it was the Ir Mukefet Choma from Yoshua bin Nun. I mean, you are Jewish by definition here in Israel, so therefore there's no really need for different denominations, and therefore the reforms and the conservatives are very weak as a movement. I'm not saying anything good about them, anything bad about them. I'm describing the situation. Okay, so therefore even as a very famous secular writer wrote, I'm completely secular. I never go to shul, but the shul that I don't go to is the Orthodox shul. You understand? So even those that are demonstrating against religion, they are demonstrating against the Orthodoxy version. Yeah, and actually there's no real existence of reforms and conservatives in the society. It's a very, very small minority.
When you say Orthodoxy, you include the Harek?
Yeah. Orthodoxy, I mean, what's Orthodoxy is a good question, but let's make things easier, okay? So, Orthodoxy, for instance, the question, does Orthodoxy recognize the power of the majority? Always? Not always. Let's say the majority will say that you should shift from Shabbat to Sunday. Okay? If the source of power of Jewish life is Orthodoxy, this will not be acceptable. Yeah? Does the majority recognize the list of rights? Can a Kohen marry a divorced woman? So therefore, there is a contradiction between the list of rights and does the Orthodoxy recognize freedom of expression? What with Lashon Hara, Albanat Panim, we'll have a special shiur about that. So there is a contradiction between saying that Israel is a democracy and Israel is a Jewish state. Now, how wide is the contradiction? Depends who you ask. There are people that are trying are pledging more and more to say it is a contradiction, therefore we must make a decision. Some of them are very secular and some of them are very Orthodox, yeah, but they actually cooperate in order to say it's impossible, so therefore we must make the decision. But most of the people in Israel, most Orthodox people and most secular and most Masorati or whatever, even though from the philosophic way there is a contradiction, as I said before, but actually in reality, in most cases, things are rolling on. Yeah, and Israel is a Jewish state. For instance, according to the law, only religious marriage are recognized. Yeah, so therefore it seems it's going to be a disaster for the secular people, but it's not a disaster. Some of them are really getting married in the Orthodox marriage. Some of them are going to Cyprus. There's a 1,000 deal, very good deal, $1,000, deal. That means flights back and forth, a good paying the fees to the mayor of Nicosia, getting married there, a good restaurant, night in a hotel, and coming back to Israel, $1,000. Not bad. And you can get there married, and according to the international law, and Israel is part of it, every marriage that are recognized out of Israel will be recognized by Israel. everywhere, even gays. Yeah, even so, everyone will. It's maybe funny, but you don't remember. You're too young. But in the beginning of the Oslo process, there was quite good relationship between Israel and the Palestinians. So therefore, people could do that in the casino in Jericho. They didn't have to fly to Cyprus. Casino of Jericho was a foreign state, yeah. And therefore, people went in the morning, got married there, and came back married officially. So the secular people, or they don't get married, bichlal, yeah. So it all so therefore, things are rolling on, and sometimes there is a big dispute, a big disagreement. So there is a crisis in the coalition, and they try to do that. But actually, Israel is quite well with the idea of being a democratic in a Jewish democracy in a Jewish state. Okay, so I want to say it again. It may be from the philosophy point of view, from principles, very complicated or even impossible, but in reality, Israel succeeds. It's also part of the politics system, because actually always there are religious parties part of the coalition. So therefore there's always compromises and concessions, and everybody is satisfied, especially when a very amount of the problems are actually finance issues. That means once the government will support families with a lot of children, most of them are religious, and will support the yeshivot, and yeah, so therefore that's already a big part of the solution. So then the religious parties, especially the Haredi parties, will not be very fast to leave the coalition and to go to new elections, and so therefore things are, Baruch Hashem, are being. What is changing? What is the tension? Okay, and what causes the tension? The tension is, even though I said that the reforms and the conservatives, especially, they're really very, very, very small minorities, but in the democracy system, they have rights. They have rights. And because they have rights, the fact that religious parties are not satisfied with the reforms, with the conservatives, many of the secular people are not satisfied, doesn't make doesn't have any value. They have rights. And recently, I mean, in the last 1 or 2 decades, the reforms and the conservatives started to fight for their rights. Fighting for the rights through the political system, they don't have any chance, because, as I said, they are a very, very, very small minority. So the only track, the only route that they can actually use is the Supreme Court, and forcing the Supreme Court to protect their rights, for instance, by forcing the state to recognize, or trying to force the state to recognize conversions that reforms or conservative rabbis or whatever will do. Okay, and that is, even if they are minority, the Supreme Court actually should protect, according to the democratic system, should protect their rights, or even less than that, getting at least their share in the budget of synagogues. I mean, let's say there are 30,000 synagogues in Israel and only 100 reforms. Okay, let's say, okay, so but also 100 reforms, synagogues or temples or whatever should get their share, yeah? And so more and more appeals towards the Supreme Court by reforms and conservatives are being done in Israel recently. That's from one hand. From the other hand, the Orthodoxy, and especially the Haredi Orthodoxy, is becoming more and more stronger in Israel. More and more stronger. First of all, birth rates. Birth rates, yeah. Estimate family in Israel is 2.7 or 2.8 children. That's not the estimate. What?
3 or more.
Ma, in the Haredi?
Kotelim.
3, I don't, okay? No, I think it's... Okay, 3 and more. Beseder, okay. A Haredi 3 is a very, very, very small family. Yeah? And more, Haredi, so the power is more, the self-confidence is, they're not hiding. In Israel, they were attacked brutally because the fact they are not serving, they didn't serve in the army, or they're not serving in the army. Today, there are more groups that are not serving in the army. So therefore, today, you know, we had a meeting with the chief of staff 2 weeks ago, and he said that less than 60% of the 18 years old people in Israel are being recruited into the army. All the Arabs, all the Haredim, and here and there and that. So therefore, the fact that they don't serve in the army is not so tangible like it was before. So it's more and more power. And it's not only more and more power, it's also an image, and I'm not sure it's an image. It may be but images take place, you know, in a very strong thing. Maybe it's not only an image. The feeling is that the main disaster to Judaism are the Reform and the conservative Jews in the world, because of assimilation, because of mixed marriage, because of all kinds of new system of conversions, because, you know, all those issues, because J Street and the relationship between less orthodox and J Street. Yeah, there is a kind of relatively there is a connection. Nobody knows exactly what is the connection, but there is a connection in left wing and whatever. So therefore, the Reform and the conservatives became the enemies. Even though it's announcing, we love every Jew, but unless he's a Reform and conservative, yeah, something like that. So the tension between, from one hand, Reform and conservatives using the Supreme Court as their source of power, and from the other hand, Orthodoxy that is becoming more and more strong, more and more self-confident and powerful, and analyzing that the real danger to the Jewish nation are the conservative and the reforms. And again, I'm not expressing my opinion. I'll say I'm now trying to describe the situation actually is expanding, and the gap between the groups are becoming more and more deeper and more problematic. Okay, so this is the background. One of the main issues that are now under big dispute, and part of that is the Kotel issue. Okay, until 2 decades ago, there was no doubts that the Kotel is an Orthodoxy synagogue that is being controlled by the rabbi of the Kotel, that is an Orthodox rabbi, that all the customs there are Orthodoxy, that there is a mechitza, there is a separation between women and men, that no women is laying tefillin and no one is reading in the Torah, and etc., etc. So that was no argument about that. And what happened slowly, there was more and more occupation by Orthodoxy towards the Western world platform. For instance, the mechitza started to grow up to the backwards, not only down where everybody's praying, but also to the upper level. You know what I mean? And the rabbi of the Kotel started to insist, for instance, that Bnei Akiva, that is Orthodoxy, will not have mixed events on the upper, even on the upper level. No doubt, no one wanted it to be down, but even in the upper level, and all kinds of young Judea and all kinds of, summer camps events that are there will not take place there because the boys and the girls are not dressed correctly, but the Kotel became more and more Orthodox, and that's from one hand. And from the other hand, there were very small groups of women Some of them, most of them are, I don't know, I don't want to define them. If they're secular, if they're, but at least most of them, not all of them, are not, their cycle, their life cycle is not religious. It's not according to halacha. They don't observe Shabbat, they don't eat kosher. No, it's not only that they're not Orthodox. Most of them are not even Masorti. Yeah, okay, most of them are not even Masorti, but they started to come to the Kotel every Rosh Chodesh to have a women prayer in the Ezrat Nashim, and from more and more there was an escalation, wanting to come with a talis, to come with a kippah, to lane in the Torah, to light the Hanukkah candle. Now you'll see next week it will be a big, it's unbelievable that this will be the argument in Israel, but if women will be permitted to light a Hanukkah candle in the Kotel HaMa'aravi, etc., 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 and the tension became more and more, the demands, first of all, before tension, the demands, and this is also our Kotel. They claim we can do whatever we want to do that. Nobody gave Orthodoxy the monopoly to conduct it, and therefore, and actually, and we are not, so we're not against Orthodoxy, they claim. Let us do whatever we want once a month, and in a comment I said years ago, let them do whatever they want, and there'll be peace and quiet. But, you know, as I said, from the other hand, Orthodoxy became more and more stronger, and the conflict became really very aggressive. Became aggressive, violence every Rosh Chodesh, all kinds of diapers that were thrown towards those girls, towards those women, and the rabbi of the Kotel sometimes used the police in order to arrest women that are praying with a talis in the, and you can understand that this caused a big, big storm, especially in the States. I mean, the only place in the world where policemen will arrest a Jewish woman that is praying with a talis is in Israel. You know, things are really went out of control. Okay, went out of control, and the problem is that what to do, because if you will ask the majority in Israel, most of them don't care. Okay, they couldn't care less that Orthodoxy will control, and Orthodoxy is actually using is there. I mean, when you'll come on the last the night of Sliches, you'll see more than 500,000, 600,000 people. I don't know if you ever were there on Hoshana Rabbah. It's hundreds and thousands of people. Shavuot, Orthodoxy are there, and actually no one reforms. They're not there, but as I said, they have the rights. Yeah, from their point of view, from democracy point of view, they have the rights, and the dispute became more and more violent and more and more. Therefore, the Prime Minister, he was asked the Secretary of the government, and together with Sharansky, with the head of the Jewish agency, to build a kind of a committee and find a solution, okay? That everybody can live with it. That everyone can live with it, okay? And this is the famous Vadat Kotel, and they made a kind of solution. Let's have three platform, how do you say, three areas, okay? Women, men, and mixed, okay? And the women and men will be where they are now. The mixed will be, in the entrance near the southern part of the Kotel. We'll find a way that it will not be isolated, but it will not be integrated. Everybody could live with it. And silently, there actually was an agreement. And even Orthodox rabbis and Orthodox politicizers and everybody, and it was a solution that really it took a few, in a few days, if something wouldn't have happened, and I'll explain exactly what, the solution would have been accepted by the government, and everybody will be, I can't say the word satisfied, but everybody will be able to live with it. Okay? To live with it, and that's not bad. And people from the diaspora will do whatever they want. And I was against it. I was against it. I want all Am Yisrael to pray in the same. I prefer women that lay tefillin and wear talis in the women's section, where everyone is praying, than, starting to separate all kinds of sections.
Is it not halachically worse to have a mixed, an egalitarian minyan?
Not a mixed. No. Even the reforms in the conservative didn't insist for mixed. They insist that women will be able to do whatever they want.
So in the third area.
In the third area, they let them do whatever they want. Okay.
The third area is just for women, though?
No.
No. So what I'm saying is there. In this third area, they will be doing
whatever. Everyone will do whatever he wants. Okay? Everyone will do whatever he wants. Ma? No, ma pito. Okay? No, mechitza there. Everybody will do whatever they want. Okay? Now, who wasn't satisfied? Only that's a good question of Akiva. The Orthodox women weren't, because they wanted to lay tefillin and to wear talis. They couldn't do that in the women's section, because from now on, according to the agreement, it will be only Orthodoxy, common. And in the mixed, they don't pray in the mixed section. So they didn't have a solution, but it's all kinds of really very, 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 very small numbers. Okay? What happened? What happened is that people and politicians didn't recognize that we are in a new system of communication, and that is the social networks. And who actually broke all this agreement? All this agreement was broken by young Haredi reporters. They started to attack their rabbis and leaders that accepted this agreement. Why? Because the problem is not with the agreement. The problem is that it is the first time that the state of Israel is recognizing in an official position Reform and conservative rabbis that will be responsible on the third section. Okay, so the problem is not the third section. The problem is actually authorizing. Since the last 3,000 years, there were only Orthodox rabbis. Now, non-Orthodox rabbis and leaders and women and whatever is actually gonna be appointed as official responsibility, official offices, I don't know what word to use, of Israel. Once you do that, then they'll insist that they want to be candidates as chief rabbi of Ra'anana too, or chief rabbi of the army, or of the police, or, you are opening a narrow gate that you are appointing non-Orthodox rabbis as responsible on religion in the state of Israel, and that actually all the agreements were broken. And this is the situation now. The situation now is the following. From the Orthodox point of view, no, there was a big step this week, 1 minute, until this week. From the Orthodox, there is a complete refuse to come to any kind of concessions and compromise that will include any kind of recognition to non-Orthodox rabbis, okay? From the other hand, today the reformers and the conservatives, and vis-a-vis all the big majority in the United States of Jews, then where I said before that their organization is much powerful, and are have the promise from the prime minister to find a solution that they'll find their place in the Kotel, and the government doesn't actually know what to do. Because if Benjamin Netanyahu will knock on the table and will say, this is my agreement, he may lose his government. He may lose his government, the Haredi may put it as a principle, and the Haredi parties really love to leave the government on Kiddush Hashem, and something like that, so therefore, and actually nothing will be changed, because the next election will be approximately the same results. There's no big change that we can see in the horizon. Nothing really gonna change. From the other hand, the Reform, the Conservatives, and the majority of the jury all over the world is really insulted and very, very confused and angry and attacking the Prime Minister and Sharansky or whatever, because you promised us there will be a solution for the majority of the Jews in the world, not in the state of Israel, but in the world, and there's no solution. Okay? So this was until last week. What was changed this week is that the Haredi parties, with 3 Knesset members from the Betия Yehudi, from I don't know who did you vote for. I mean, I don't want to identify myself. So therefore, from the Zionist religious party, okay, he wrote a draft. And the draft says that the Western Wall, by law in Israel, will be conducted by the chief Orthodox rabbinate, completely, according to the law. It's not committees, it's not consistent, it's not compromises, it's not anything. Only it will be defined officially as an Orthodox shul, the whole wide section of the Kotel HaMaravi, every inch of the Kotel HaMaravi, and there will not be music there, according by law. No music, nothing mixed there, no events there, nothing besides what you do in a shul. Okay? Now this draft is annoying everyone that didn't write the draft. Yes, I mean, everyone. I mean, the secular parties said, on our dead body. I mean, this is crossing all the lines. The jury all over the world is warning Benjamin Netanyahu that if this law will be accepted, if it will be advanced even, the gap between Jews all over the world and the state of Israel will come to a boiling point where you can't anymore. I wrote against it too. I wrote against it from I'm going back to my opinion. I want the Kotel HaMaravi to be a place for every Jew in the world, every single Jew in the world, and I don't want to isolate people. But so reminding our friends that things that we are used to do in Young Israel shuls, and there will be violating the law. For instance, sometimes we do Hallel with Klei Negina, right? In here, if we'll come to the Western Wall, we'll be in jail. If we'll come saying Hallel with Klei Negina, because it will be part of the law that restrictions and the regulations will be according to one kind of orthodoxy. Yeah. So therefore, it's also. But I'm saying this is not my main claim. I'm only demonstrating the fact that it will also be problematic for orthodoxy. But this is not my main claim. I mean, even if the law was exactly Yeshivat Oרות Shaul, whatever we do here, the law will say everything that is being done in Yeshivat Oרות Shaul is the state law in the Kotel HaMaravi. Even if this was, I will be against. Yeah, I'll be against, and the fact that the state will conduct a holy place and will use policemen in order to impose how to behave in the Kotel HaMa'aravi, for me, is someone got mixed. I mean, something wrong happened on the way. And this is the situation now. Now, the Haredi, it's brand new. I mean, you remember that when we started this shiur, I told you every week there'll be a new scandal. Okay, so this is our weekly scandal that today this is the draft, and they insist that the coalition will accept this law, and the secular parties in the coalition say it will not cross. So they say we'll leave the government and everything will collapse, or will not vote for the budget if you are, and the Ministry of Finance is ahead of a secular party. So they, you know, politics is a balancing power. So this is the situation. I mean, it's brand new. I mean, the draft is really this week. Today's Wednesday. It was, I think it was how do you say, put in the Knesset. How do you say, delivered, submitted. It was submitted to the Knesset on Monday morning, and nobody knows now what to do. Nobody knows what to do. I can't see a situation that this draft will pass, but never say never. I mean, you know, in Israel, so this is today the situation, and what we in Israel don't understand, that I can say, most of the people in Israel are not really interested. In Israel, we don't really understand how deep this draft and this process is insulting the majority of the Jews in the world. We don't understand it. That's the truth. Because, as I said, we don't see any need in reforms in conservative in Israel. We have our Jewish identity by definition, being part of the Jewish state, citizens as of the Jewish state. So therefore, we don't feel it. I mean, I'm positive sure that when people will understand the meaning for the majority of the Jews all over the world, they will say, you can't do such a thing. You can't use the power of the state in order to impose your religious opinion and to actually isolate everyone that is not behaving according to your principles and to your ideas. Now, don't make any mistakes. It's not only that I'm an Orthodox rabbi, I want the Kotel HaMa'aravi to behave as an Orthodox place, and it will be there. And it will be there because Orthodox people are coming there. I mean, no, I don't have any doubts. I'm against using the power of the state. Yeah, it's not that I'm against the idea of conducting the Kotel HaMa'aravi according to Orthodoxy custom and halacha. But I don't want to use the power of the state. And this is this weekly dispute around the Kotel HaMa'aravi. You don't see it too much because this draft was submitted and excuse me, nothing is being done now, and everybody now is busy in two things. One is Amona, and the second thing is the budget, because 31st of December is coming. But you'll see that as more and more will come into Hanukkah, and people will use the Reform and Conservatives are the Numit Yavnim, they are from Greek, and you'll see all these announcements and all these images and using all kinds of superlatives and whatever. It will raise up, and when the Haredi parties will feel that here is now the chance to pass this draft, they'll submit it and insist that the Knesset will vote for it. I really hope that Israel will not do such a mistake and try to isolate and to actually, evacuate Jews from the Kotel HaMa'aravi. That I can't even think about it. I think it will be a disaster. And like Eglei Rovam, kimat הייתי אומר. Yeah, it's really separating the nation in the holiest place. Something is wrong. something is wrong there. Okay? Yeah, sure.
If we were to consider, even if we were to consider Kotel a bet knesset, is there a problem with if a woman wearing talitot? Let's say if they were here and...
Depends who you ask. Actually, it's the Shiur Klali tomorrow morning. I mean, tomorrow morning there's a Shiur Klali summarizing our sugya. It's a very good issue for summarizing a sugya. Can a woman say a bracha under the chuppah? Yeah, one of the Sheva brachot. Yeah? So these are the kinds of questions, depends who you ask. I'm talking about Orthodox halachic rabbis. I'm not talking about nothing, the Orthodox halachic rabbis, depends who you ask, because you'll see tomorrow that the source, you can read the sources that the answer is no with a capital N, and the answer can be why not with a capital W. Yeah, so I'm saying things that will grow from the sugya, not without any politics, without any ideology, without any nothing. Reading the Gemara, reading the Rambam, reading the sources as it. Okay, so therefore it depends who you ask. Yeah, so last week the chief Sephardic rabbi said that a rabbi that gives a permission to a woman to say Sheva Brachot, actually the wedding is pasul. The whole wedding is pasul, and actually maybe they're not married even. He didn't say exactly that, but he say very, very nasty words against rabbis that if they do, I don't know who does it. I mean, it really does, but he had a target and he threw an arrow towards this target, and so in fact, you'll see tomorrow in Shiur Klali that it's more complicated. The same thing is talis and tefillin. There is a kind of I think you were in the Tosfot Shiur. You were there, where I mentioned that there is a kind of something that is not coherent. It's not coherent because let's take shofar, lulav, tefillin, and talit. Okay. Now shofar, every woman is coming and blessing, even saying a bracha, right? Lulav, half of the women are notlim lulav. Tefillin and talis, no one. Why? All four of them are mitzvot aseh zman grama, right? All are in the same status. So again, I'm not asking not from ideology, not from feminism, not from anti-feminism. I'm asking a pure halachic question. Okay, how come you support women that come to hear a shofar? Not only you support, if you make a special tkiyat shofar for women that couldn't come, right, for sure, and someone is saying the bracha there, and saying that laying tefillin and wearing talis is a complete violation of halacha, and not only of halacha, of the status of the synagogue, of the synagogue in the Western world. Something cannot be there. I mean, what I claim is I don't want women to lay tefillin and to wear talis in the Kotel Maravi. But this is the less worst problem. It's much more problematic to separate the nation of Israel. It's much more problematic to appoint non-Orthodox rabbis as official official positions in the Kotel Maravi. I prefer that everyone will be able to do it. And if the price is to let women to lay tefillin and to wear a talis, let them do whatever they want. Okay? So this is my opinion, but hopefully it will be accepted.
Even if you do allow women to put on talis and tefillin in the women's section in the Kotel, you still have a problem with the Reform and Conservative movement.
But they lose the power. They lose the case. I mean, you're right, but once you have an individual solution, and that's many judges claim. The solution for the individual is that he can find his place. Then, because to say that the Kotel is an Orthodoxy shul, and you don't have to force Orthodoxy shul to adopt Reform and Conservatives halachot or whatever, how do you do the legislations, it's acceptable. I mean, So therefore, it will not, they'll lose the case.
There already is a section on the south part of the Kotel.
What?
There is a section already.
Yeah.
So you can do egalitarian minyanim.
I don't know exactly why. Yeah, you know, there is. I know there is, but something, I don't know exactly. It's not what they want. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I really don't know exactly. So, therefore, we'll see what will happen.
Do you think it's really important, like the whole thing, like after all, the Kotel is just one wall from like.
Yeah, I think no, you're right. Actually, personally, the Kotel is not so important. What's important is that Temple Mountain. Yeah, that's the אסור לשכוח, the Beit is here. But let's, you know, I'll answer with a story. You know that the tradition says that the tomb of Rachel is in Bethlehem. Now, when you read Tanakh, it's not in Bethlehem. When you read Tanakh, all the sources actually prove that it's in the northern part of Jerusalem, not southern part. Yeah? Kol berama, it's near Ramah, Aram, it's on the way to Babylon, and whatever. All the sources are that Kever Rachel is in the northern part of Jerusalem, and completely in a different place than there it is, okay? I remember when we asked my Rebbe, Rabbi Mital, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, so he said, you know what? Even if she weren't buried in Bethlehem, the tears of Jews buried her there after 2,000 years. I mean, you understand? So that's what I want to say about the Kotel. As long as the Kotel is the center for all Jews in the world, as long as it's there, so I want it to be unified. Once we'll go over the Kotel and behind the Kotel and we'll have the schus to build the Beis Mikdash, then we'll agree that in the Kotel the market will be there, McDonald's and riches. No, not together. Yeah, but it will be there. Okay? Yalla.
הרב, למה זה כזה נועד